Welcome to Big Daddy Storytime. We're reading Sesame Street's Elmo's Learning Adventure, Animal Alphabet. Can you see Elmo there? He says, "Hello, everybody." And Grover and Bert and Ernie. Can you see them all there? Excellent work. Would you like to read about the animal alphabet that they want to teach us? You would? All right, let's get started. Elmo is ready to learn the animal alphabet from ape to zebra. Will you help Elmo and his friends name as many animals as you can? We can do it. We can do it. Starting with the letter A all the way through Z. Can we do it? We can do it. Let's do it. A. Can you guess what animal begins with A? That's right. Ape begins with A. There is also the aardvark, sometimes known as an anteater. It has a sticky tongue it uses to get ants. That's a lot of things beginning with A. That's right, Elmo. B. Bear begins with B. A bear's favorite meal is honey. And bees make honey. That's two things that begin with B. Bear and bee. That's right. Great job. C. Cookie Monster begins with C. Cookie Monster is almost as tall as a camel. Cat, canary, and camel also begin with C. Excellent job, my friends. D. Barkley is a dog. D for dog. Dog begins with D. Duck also begins with D. What do you do when a duck makes a splash? That's right, you duck! Great job, my friends. E and F. Ernie begins with E, but he's not an animal. An elephant begins with E. Elephant E, that's right. Ernie thinks his friend's snuffy nose is as long as his elephant's trunk. F begins with F. Fox begins with F, though. Flamingo, frog, and ferret also begin with F. So there's Ernie for E and what? Fox for F. Great job. G. Elmo wants some animals beginning with G. He knows some animals too. With the beginning with the letter G. There are tall giraffes. You see the tall giraffe beside him? Excellent work. And tiny grasshoppers. Boing, boing, boing. The grasshoppers go. And don't forget Dorothy, Elmo's pet goldfish. That's right. G for goldfish. Great job. H. That's a big animal with Zoe. It has a very big name too, beginning with the letter H. Let's try it. It's a hippopotamus. That's right, hippopotamus begins with the letter H. There's I and J. Grover knows an iguana, iguana, and that starts with I. An iguana is a type of lizard, you know. It has long spikes running down its back to its tail. Wow! The jaguar, jaguar, is a big spotted cat. Jaguar starts with J. Which of these is the iguana, and which one is the jaguar? You can do it. I know you can. You guessed it. Great job. The iguana is the one on top that Grover's hand is pointing to, and the bottom one that Grover's stick is pointing to, the pointing stick, is the jaguar. Great job. K for animals beginning with K. Elmo hops over to Australia. Where does he find? Where does he find it? He finds a kicky kangaroo and a kindly koala. That's what he found in Australia. A kicky kangaroo and a kindly koala. That's right. All right, it's a koala, excuse me. That's an L for llama. We got to go to L for llama on the other page. There's ladybug as well, and lizard, all beginning with L. Which do you see like a lot? Which do you like a lot? Well, we like them all. There's llama, and then there's ladybug, and then there's lizard. We like them all. That's right. M, monkey begins with M. Look at Elmo playing with his monkey friends. Imagine you are a monkey swimming from the branches. That's us swimming. Yeehaw! What food makes a monkey go, mm-mm-mm? You guessed it, my friends. You're so smart. Banana. That's right. B for banana. But monkey is for M. Remember now, we got to go to N and O. Big Bird has a lot of feathered friends. Nightingale begins with N, you know. Do you know that nightingales sing during the day and at night? Oh, I didn't know that. Owl begins with O, and so does ostrich, and both of these are birds too. So there's O for ostrich, and O is for other birds too, and then there's N, and N is for nightingale. Wow, we're learning so much today. Great job, my friends. P. Bird is playing with his pet pigeon. Bernice, pigeon begins with P. Pig begins with P too. Oink, 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 oink. Q and R. Can you see Grover there on the next page? Excellent work. Quail begins with Q. How lucky, because there are so many other animals that start with Q. And not that many, though. There are many, but not that many. There are lots of things beginning with R, though. Grover is holding a rosy nosed rabbit. Rosie and rabbit are R. How about rat and reindeer and rooster also begin with O? That's right. Cock-a-doodle-doo, a rooster, R. S. Zoe loves dancing with her animal friends beginning with S. Swans sail elegantly across the water, and bushy-tailed squirrels leap strongly from branch to branch. You need to be super strong to move like that, says Zoe. That's right. Great job, Zoe, and great job, my friends. T. Toucan begins with T. Toucans have large beaks and live in Central America and South America. What birds live in trees near you? Great job. Super duper, my friends. U and V. Elmo doesn't think there are any real animals that begin with U, but unicorn does. Yeah, yes it does. The unicorn is a make-believe animal that looks like a horse with one horn on its head. That's right. See Elmo holding up a picture of a unicorn? That starts with U. There are a lot of animals that start with V, but a vulture is a one of them, though, not a lot. You know, that V letter only has vulture to it. There's many other ones, though, but that's what we're going to learn. Even though it looks silly, a vulture is a real bird. Can you see vulture on top of the rocks there? Remember, not very many animals begin with V, but vulture begins with V. Great job, my friends. And look at Bert and look at Ernie and Zoe going, wow, that's so cool. We learned about U and V. W, over on the other side, Oscar. Worms begin with W. Oscar loves worms, especially his pet worm, Slimy. Hi, Slimy. What else does begin? What else begins with W? Wallaby, walrus, and wolf. Ooh, ooh. Can you name any other animals that begin with W? That's right. Great job, my friends. You did so great. X. Grover knows two animal names that begin with X. The Exopolis is a type of frog, and then there's a bird named Exopus, and then the extraordinary. That's right, they're both extraordinary. Elmo never knew that before. Wow, X, there are animals with the letter X. There's, like we already know, Exopus, and then the X Inopus. That's right. Great job. Wow, that was a little hard to say. Y and Z. You're almost through alphabet. That's right. Great job, Elmo. And great job, my friends. Thank you for hanging in there. Can you find any animals beginning with Y and Z? Elmo knows that yak begins with Y. That's right. And zebra begins with Z. Great job. A zebra looks like a horse with black and white stripes. Can you see the zebra there, my friends? Fantastic work. Thanks for sharing this animal adventure with Elmo and his friends. You made learning the alphabet super fun. Great job and super duper on our journey today through the alphabet with our Sesame Street friends. What have we learned today? We learned that the alphabet and animals and learning about the animals through the alphabet is so much fun. Elmo and his friends showed us that. Excellent work, my friends. Be sure to like, favorite, and subscribe, and have a super duper day today. Excellent, and God bless.